My brothers and sisters, so good to be with you again. We're going to dive more deeply into the whole area of fitness. Why? Well, we're coming off the new year, and I know that according to statistics, 75% of you made New Year's resolutions, and the vast majority of those had to do with your body. That's right, before your marriage, relationships, spiritual lives, you filthy pagans. It was, I'm kidding. It was a lot of these about fitness. I want to do X, Y, or Z with my health in the new year. Studies also showed that a lot of you are already failing at that. So we're going to talk about how to succeed and what that has to do with your spiritual life, and I have a fitness expert with us this week. Thanks for being with us. All right, my friends, we got a professional bodybuilder with us this week. I know, you're thinking, Chris, there's a professional bodybuilder there every week. It's you. No, a real one, and a real-life Catholic, and a personal coach, Dakota Lane. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me.
Dude,
Great to be here. Absolutely.
I love being with you, dude. Okay, before I dive into asking Dakota questions, I want to open the floor up. As you know, this is a live show, and a big part of this, I'm not just here to give a message, I'm here for you. I'm here to take your questions. Anytime you want to interrupt our conversation with your questions, text 720-650-0100. That's 720-650-0100, and we'll take your questions. Dakota, before we dive into the whole fitness journey that you've been on, tell me about your spiritual journey, because I love your faith, and I've seen you grow in your faith through the years just by seeing you at Mass through the years. So you entered a beautiful marriage with a great Catholic woman. So tell me about your faith journey. What got you into this? You're not your average guy.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I tell people that I found my faith through what I think is the best way to find it, which was through intense suffering. My home life growing up was just very difficult. A lot of suffering, a lot of abuse, a lot of disease, and that's really what got me to the place of a question one morning before middle school, where I asked God, if this is all life has to offer, I don't really want any part of it. Life is just too hard. There's too much suffering. And that's really where it started. And then from there was just a complete opening of my heart to something more and a hope. And that's really what the gospel began to offer me, obviously, which was a hope and a reason through my suffering. So it was through the high school journey, just getting to know Jesus more intimately through that suffering, and seeing the reasons behind it, what it grew in me, how I grew through it, that led me eventually to seminary for 2 years, transferred from there to Franciscan.
Where were you in seminary?
I was at seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I was studying for Denver, but it was a college seminary.
Got it.
Amazing experience of formation and just diving deep into my brokenness.
Yeah.
And that's really where kind of the fitness came in, which we'll get to.
So it's a Franciscan University, another fellow alumni.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you as you're talking, and my face is like, oh, man. I'm so in awe of the beauty of grace when I hear a story like that, because most people who are atheists would tell you it's because I suffered. It's because of the problem of pain and suffering. You hit the bottom with pain and suffering, and it became a prayer of, please, God, tell me there's something more.
Yeah.
And he answered that prayer.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the interesting thing with suffering is that I tell people all the time, whether it's physical, spiritual, existential suffering, it can either make you bitter or it can make you better. Oftentimes it's both throughout the journey. But for me, like you mentioned with grace, only by grace and receptivity. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And then after Franciscan, coming to the Augustine Institute for my graduate work, and then starting a business and working with people now who get to give back.
One of the many, and we can talk about this a lot more, but one of the many overlaps of physical exercise and spiritual life. I've thought a lot about this. If God wants to create a part of your soul that's more beautiful, that stands out even more, he does it the same way that you build up your bicep. How? Resistance.
Absolutely.
You want to get that bigger, you hurt it. And not that God is this divine, pain inflictor, but he does create resistance with the hope that we're going to rise up to that.
Yeah.
What got you from, your spiritual life to? I think I remember you when you were when you were small,
Yeah.
Dakota.
Yeah, I was extremely small.
Yeah. Okay. So what developed that passion in you? Not just professionally
Yeah.
with coaching. We'll get to that, but on a personal level, when was that ignited? And when did that go from, hey, this is a cool personal hobby to, you're a professional athlete level with this. So tell me about that whole journey.
Yeah, it's been a wild journey. When I entered high school, I was 4'11", 81 pounds. So I was about the size like a fifth grader.
81 pound college, high school freshman.
Yeah.
That's not a
I
fun
wrestled
experience.
103s. I never had to worry about cutting because I was so light, but I tell people, I was essentially a hobbit with less hairy feet. And my whole life, I've just been small.
Say that again?
Essentially a hobbit with less hairy feet.
That's good.
Literally, though. My whole life, I was small. I was the smallest kid in my whole school my whole life. I was strong in high school, and I've always been athletic. I've always loved sports.
Yeah.
But it was when I went to seminary, actually. We had a lot of time to pray, a lot of time to study, and there was a brand new $60 million workout facility. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go start working out. But if I had to tell you the most honest reason of why I began that journey, at the very depths of my heart, what I wanted to walk into a room and to be noticed. That's where it started, which obviously came from a lot of things from my childhood growing up, wanting affirmation from my dad, all that type of stuff. We all have that. We all search for different things in different ways for those reasons, but that's really where it started, was a desire to be noticed, to make something of myself. And it was very early on into the fitness, working out stuff, which I had no idea what I was doing. It's funny to look back on. I benched and did bicep curls every workout because I didn't know what I was doing.
Curls for the girls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I got into it that way, but very quickly I realized it's about more than my biceps. They're not going to make me happy. And for me, it became, which we'll get into, really a school of virtue. And that's where, at that point, I realized this self-mastery I was diving into, there was this unique parallel between the suffering I had experienced in life, the joy that Jesus had to offer me, but then on a bodily level, those types of same principles that you were mentioning, working your muscles, the strain, the rebuild, those types of things. So then when I went to Franciscan and really got into more of my own journey, learning more about it, then it took off from there. And then working with people, giving back, it's just exploded from there, and for my own desire to help.
I love what you mentioned, the word happiness. I mean, this is, for you, not about your body, which is amazing.
Yeah.
That, right? And the people you're coaching, you have a coaching business. Tell me about where people can find out about that, by the way.
Yeah.
Not that you have any bandwidth to take any more people, but what is the site?
DakotaLaneFitness.com.
DakotaLaneFitness.com.
Yeah.
And you're fine. I mean, for you, this was a discovery that wow, what I actually want is to be happy. I want to be healed. There's so much a body-soul connection. How are you finding that with people you coach?
It is so apparent. I mean, I work with a lot of Catholics, but I work with a lot of non-Catholics. And really what it comes down to, like you mentioned, is that search for happiness.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at the fitness culture, they'll look at the gym culture, and they'll see a lot of vanity, a lot of self-obsession, self-serving, and it's there. It's there in every industry. The reality is the fundamental desire in the gym is I want to be better. I want to be a better human being. And yeah, a lot of times it stops at the flesh, but from there, if you take that and you can reorient that energy, it's amazing. So the people that I work with, just one example of the way it kind of happens, somebody comes to work with me, we start working together. Well, eventually that desire that they kind of had or thought of, I'm going to change my body, it's going to make me happy. Deep down, they might not admit that, but that's what's there.
Right.
You start to change your body, you realize it's not gonna bring me ultimate happiness.
Yeah, there's
and
more.
another thing comes out. Somebody mentions to me offhand, the reason why I wanted to work with you is because I thought that it would make my husband like me more. And it's things like that. You just see the brokenness of the world, the brokenness of humanity, myself. The gym is really a place for us to just piece by piece begin to work ourselves back together through grace, that discipline, taking self-mastery over ourselves, not being like a leaf blown in the wind of our appetites. And really taking control of what we can do in a humble way where we know, like, you can't healthy eat your way into immortality. That's not my goal as a coach, is to help you become immortal in that way. You can't work out your way into becoming, unstoppable and unkillable. That's not the point. the point is everything else that goes along under the surface.
Or hitting to those childhood wounds. I can't work out my way to getting the approval I wanted as a little kid. And yet there's that profound overlap in the spiritual life. I mean, one of the reasons 75% of people, their New Year's resolution, it has something to do with their fitness, is because it's something measurable.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like my bench press went up by 2.5 pounds. There's something I'm controlling in life. There's some way I'm progressing. And then when you get people to see that this is part of the spiritual journey, that you can progress spiritually in the same way, you can light the fire there, man.
Yeah. Well, that's the big thing for me. At the end of the day, discipline is great. Discipline, taking, control over our will, that's great. But as I mentioned, the goal isn't to just become super disciplined. Like, what would it be if you just became a super disciplined person at the end of your life? Like, okay, you had a really clean bed your whole life. No, what is it for? At the end of the day, it's for love. That's really what it comes down to. Love, to will the good of another, takes free will. You have to make that choice. So the fact that when I'm disciplining my body, what is it for? Self-mastery, for self-gift. It has to lead to that, or else, yes, it can be about yourself. It can become very vain. But when you realize my life is meant to be laid down for others, I see it all the time happen. Moms become better moms. Husbands become better husbands. Workers become better workers through the simple, journey of our natural progression, taking that control over ourselves to lay yourself down.
It's about self-mastery, so that you can become self-gift. I love that distinction, because the Catholic moral life, the Christian path, can become moralism, rigorism, if it's not guided by and turned out of itself by love, and that's totally empty.
Yeah,
and that's repulsive, frankly.
Absolutely.
Someone asked a question. I'm a 63-year-old man. What are some of the best resources for fitness/nutrition while aging? Tim from Boston. What's up, Tim? Thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Other than DakotaLaneFitness.com.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there. The tough thing nowadays is there is so much information.
It's overwhelming.
It's hard.
It really is.
And most of the people who are giving information, they don't have your health at their number one priority. It's your dollar. That's the tough part about it.
Yeah.
But so there's not. I wish there was, and maybe eventually we'll create something, just a end-all be-all resource. But finding somebody that you trust, who's been there, done that, who has similar values to you, I think that's a huge component, is somebody who has similar values, so that when they're giving you information, it's not just stopping at the fitness and nutrition. Of course, it's really good to implement good fitness and nutrition, and there is objectivity to this journey. It isn't just what's the new hot fad thing. So finding somebody you trust is probably the best way if you don't necessarily know how to navigate.
So personal trainer who you trust.
Yeah, personal trainer, online coaches. There's a lot of good ways out there to find good resources, and there's a lot of really good free information out there. It's just learning to kind of sift through it. But it's super important as we age, especially, to take care of our bodies. There's things that change, that break down, and so much of the things we live with, living on prescription medications, assuming we'll always have aches and pains, all these types of things, they don't have to be givens.
Right. Yeah. Finding a person with a similar values, who's got the same Christian worldview, same advice I give to people looking for counselors. Otherwise you're entrusting your brain to someone who might turn it to mush.
Yeah.
You're trusting your bodily path, and when you see the emotional bodily connection, who could then say, yeah, do work out, because then your husband will, care about you.
Right.
And by the way, keep paying me to feed this hole inside your heart that's never going to be filled. This has opened a lot of doors for you for evangelization.
Absolutely.
Tell me about some of that. And this is one of the few realms where people who have authority are still respected. Like high school students are not necessarily respecting their teacher unless the teacher earns the respect that 50 years ago they would have had because they're a teacher. Priests, people in ministry. But if you're in the world of fitness, if you're a coach, if you're a trainer, and you just bodily present, hey, I did the thing you're striving for.
Right.
So how does that respect open doors for you to spread the faith?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. My wife always gives me a hard time because I just have the strangest encounters oftentimes in the gym. But it really is, when I got out of college and I was getting more into my faith, but also getting more into the fitness, I would get some criticism from people of, hey, are you okay? Are you sure you're not becoming like too vain about this?
And actually, I got a question right here
nice.
that ties in with what you're saying. Do you ever find fitness at odds with modesty? So, anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, hugely important question. But yeah, to speak to that, I was getting that pushback of, hey,
Yeah.
are you okay? Are you sure you're not becoming too vain with this? And it is a balance. The thing that I, kind of have to say about that is, no matter what the pursuit is, there's always going to be a possible extreme that could be bad. As Catholics, we know we don't just throw at everything because of the possibility of a bad thing. Virtue is lying in the middle. It's the means between two extremes. So yes, you could be extremely prideful, you could be a modest, vain, those types of things, but there's so much goodness to it also. You don't just have a body, you are your body. So the evangelization, I get to talk to so many guys who I otherwise wouldn't probably talk to, honestly, just because of my workout, the way I looked, whatever it may be. Talking to guys, and you kind of become a sign of contradiction where they look at you and expect you to act a certain way, to say certain things. They say something and I don't give them the response they were looking for, and all of a sudden it's, whoa, there's something different there. So all the time I get to speak
Jesus did that
into
a lot.
that.
He did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where can I get water? If you knew we were talking to you, we talk about living water. That's an awesome thing because they're looking for happiness.
Right.
They're looking for the joy that they were made for. Man.
Yeah, and so working with.
Go ahead.
Yeah, working with clients and seeing that suffering, it's a really unique and privileged spot to just speak into some of those really low moments.
Yeah.
It's a very vulnerable thing.
Yeah.
Very physical.
Speaking of finding the right balance, a lot of guys will look at you and the first question is what? How do I get huge?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think a lot of balance when it comes to physical activity and happiness comes with managing the right expectations, right? Now, people might look at you, and I think one of the downsides of the fitness industry is that folks might set expectations that fit more. I mean, you're literally a professional athlete. I'm not going to play baseball at the level of a professional baseball player,
right?
Because I don't have that kind of time,
right?
And that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as it fills the part in my life it's supposed to. How many hours a day do you work out?
Yeah, typically probably between 1.5 and 2.5 hours. Depends on the day. I really like what you said, though. It really does come down to realistic expectations.
And eating, too, is like a full-time job.
Yeah.
How much of it is eating the right way to get to that next level where it's like, okay, you're going professional athlete level.
Right.
How much time are you putting into that?
Even at the beginner level, the nutrition is hugely important.
Yeah.
Food is fuel. You have to fuel your body the right way to achieve the certain goals. But it's that. I tell people, if there was social media around when I started my fitness journey, which, mind you, has been 10 years now. So when people look at me and they're like, man, I want that. I'll work with you for 4 months. I'm like, that's awesome. I just want to let you know I've been doing this for 10 years. But so when people start off, if there was social media when I started, in 30 seconds at the click of a finger, you see 40, 50, 100 people who look absolutely amazing. You just see a highlight reel. Yeah, they can be filtered, there can be all these types of things, and it just creates this really unrealistic idea of what's achievable. You're already setting yourself up for failure. So yeah, making things that are realistic, sustainable, achievable, and knowing, what your means are that you have to give to it. You might not be able to give as much as you can, but that doesn't mean you can't give anything.
Right. Yeah, just do something.
Right.
Just take that next step is totally essential. I'm able to give, maybe a half hour, 40 minutes a day. That's realistic for me. And that's for me, like one of the biggest motives when I think, man, I don't have time to work out today. One of the biggest motives is I want to be happy. Frankly, like my neurological processes are not working as sharp. I can't serve the Lord as well.
Absolutely.
I can't be as present to my family. So it's like I'm gonna take this time away from them to get that workout in, and to bolster my own psyche. There's a dark side to the sport too. You've shared with me before how, when you're right now you're just coaching, you're not competing as a professional bodybuilder posing. But you've shared with me how that's not actually a fitness sport when you're on the stage by that point.
Right.
And a lot of people set that as an ideal, but tell me how that's not actually healthy. Like, tell me about your experience of the times that you've been on stage.
It's a really important point. Seeing more of the behind the scene now of what goes into that picture you see on a magazine or a billboard or whatever it is. Yeah, the sport of bodybuilding, it's not a sport of health at the end of it. It's a sport, when you're on stage, you're extremely depleted, dehydrated, underslept. You have no glycogen in your liver. Like, you have so many things going wrong.
Yeah, dehydrated. Why are you dehydrated before you're on stage?
Yeah, the idea is to get out as much water from your body as you can to get a really dry, lean look. So your
skin
sharp.
is stuck to your muscle. There's no liquid between.
Right. There's a whole science to
and a kid sees that, they're like, I could look that way. Like, yeah, if you don't drink for 2 or 3 days.
Right.
What's that feel like when you're about to go on stage when you're in that physical state?
It doesn't feel good. It's one of those things.
How many days do you go without water before?
I mean, it depends on the coach, but it can be, a couple days or hours. Depends on how lean you are. But it really, it really is. I tell people, it's not a sport of health. But we see those people, and we think this is ideal health and fitness. A lot of those people for photo shoots, they diet down for that to look like that for that moment. A few days after, you can easily gain between 15 and 30 pounds just of water and regular. Yeah,
within days.
After one of my shows in 3 days, I gained 25 pounds.
Just some water weight.
Yeah, water and just like glycogen replenishing. Wow. It's pretty wild. But no, it's really important for people to know. Young people looking at this as like, this is ideal. Wow. It's not healthy. At a certain point, the lowest caliper measurement I got to is 3.3 body fat percentage. At a certain point, you get to essential body fat. Your body does not work as a human being should work. It's not healthy.
So I'm doing good, man.
Yeah, you're thriving, fully human, fully alive.
Right. I'm doing. I really want to progress. Unlike everybody else, I'm talking about these New Year's resolutions. I really do want to progress in this area. But yeah, the balanced approach is essential, and I love the intentional tie-in with the spiritual life. Are you thinking of? Here's a great question. How do you maintain the balance between your spiritual and physical health? And are you intentionally, how do you turn your workout into a more spiritual experience? Are you making an act of the will as you do this?
Absolutely. This is probably one of my favorite things. When I got into working out more, like I said, it started from a desire to be noticed very quickly. And I was in seminary, I was living my faith pretty radically. I was like, people run marathons dedicated to their aunt who has cancer. People dedicate books and movies. Why can't I dedicate my workout every single day as a prayer to somebody else, offering my body as a living sacrifice, uniting it, making it not about just how much I can lift today. I'm offering this pain so that hopefully somebody else who's going through something might have the strength to get through what they're going through. And I tell that to my clients a lot, just a simple...
You're offering it up literally as you go along.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That's awesome.
I tell this to my clients, just one little, life hack to accountability. Text somebody the night before. If you're doing an early morning workout and it's hard to wake up in the morning, text somebody the night before. Hey, I just want to let you know tomorrow morning I'm gonna work out and I'm gonna offer it for you. It doesn't have to be like a cliche. I'm gonna offer it up, but just I'm gonna dedicate it for you. Yeah. I just want you to know that. I hope you have a great day. It keeps you accountable. It also kind of inspires somebody else in that. But the physical and the spiritual, it's so important. And I really wanted to get to that point. The life of prayer. It can be so easy to think I'm too busy to pray. I have so much to do. I got family, I got kids, whatever, job. When you take that time away to take care of yourself, it lends itself to make you better at those other things. It's very similar to the physical aspect, When you take that time out, it's going to make you better disposed to give of yourself in those other ways. That's self-mastery, taking control, learning to push through temporary pain for a greater good. I mean, that's really what the gospel is at the end of the day. So whether somebody's Catholic, Christian or not, that principle is going to be the same. But for me, it is a very spiritual journey for me. Just as I set aside time for prayer each day, I set aside time to make sure I'm being the healthiest I can be, to take care of the gift that God gave me in my body, not just for the sake of having a good body, but for the sake of being a well-disciplined and integrated human being to give of myself.
And that taking the time, that self-care time, I think cuts to a really fundamental wound. A lot of people fail at this because they don't think they're worth it. There's everything from housewives who are full-time moms to, you just gave a conference for priests in Arizona, right, to teach them about fitness and spirituality, which I want to dig into that more in a second. But especially anyone who's pouring themselves out for others, they frequently think, well, I got to do these 15 things before I get to my self-care. It's like, no, actually, you are more important than those 15 things.
Right.
And I way more than needing all the dishes done, your kids need you to be happy.
Yeah.
Way more than having your homily perfectly prepared and typed out. Your parishioners need to see that you're taking care of yourself.
Right.
And you smile when you get up there.
Yeah.
You want to promote vocations? Have kids look at you and say, that guy's a happy priest.
Absolutely.
But if we don't do that, it's probably because we haven't really believed that we're worthy of that love.
Yeah.
Man, it's amazing how many wounds this whole topic kicks up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I see it happen all the time. It happens in myself too. And it's not a one and done where you overcome those things and all of a sudden now I have good spiritual, fitness. It's like, no. Day in and day out, you're battling those thoughts and those things. But yeah, somebody's iPhone breaks, they're probably going to get a new iPhone pretty darn quick.
Right.
The brakes go out in their car, they're probably going to get new brakes pretty quick. Mm-hmm. The health of your body, the one gift God gave you to live your entire life, oftentimes becomes the last priority. When we change those, just like prayer, you begin to see everything else kind of fall in line.
Right. What was the main message you took with those priests? Was it for who was it? It was for all the priests?
Yeah, it was for the Diocese of Phoenix. So they invited me to come in to do an ongoing formation workshop. So it's 2.5 hours. We got to dive into kind of what I call the theology of discipline in one session. The second session really dived into nutrition and exercise science.
Wow.
Gave them practical ways, but just talking to them and their vocation, just trying to emphasize to them again, your life is spent all the time just giving of yourself and laying yourself down. The gift that you're laying down, don't you want that to be the best gift that it can be? So before the fall, our body was subordinate to our soul. It was in union.
Yeah.
We didn't have things like gluttony and laziness, and now after the fall, it's ruptured. So yeah, we have all these things rebel against us. It's just one natural way on the human level to just begin to reorder that soul-body relationship. So yeah, with the priests, it was awesome to be able to be with them, and a topic that priests probably don't get talked to about really ever.
Not enough.
I've never really heard that topic for them.
Yeah.
But so imperative for their
lives. And
lives.
then translates to the ministry too, right?
Absolutely.
You were telling me you encountered a guy who got advice from one of the priests.
Yeah. The next day, I got a text from a guy that I hadn't heard from in a while, and told me, that this priest had just mentioned something to him about, hey, you might want to look into exercising more. This guy came and gave this talk about it, and it has me thinking a lot about the importance of that. It's something so simple, and a lot of things in life can be that way. It's just like keeping it simple things, taking care of those fundamental things. It's so easy to overlook them and just over-spiritualize, and we can do all the prayers we want. That's great. You have to have that. But if you go and sit in the chapel, for an hour and then come out and you snap at your kid all of a sudden because they asked you a question, or you revert to just alcohol each night to deal with your stress, it's a little bit off.
Right. I think it was was it Mother Teresa who said if you want to be holy, act holy. And then, if you want to be a well-balanced, well-rounded person who values things like self-care, well, just do it.
Right.
And then it's gonna kick up the wounds that stop you from doing it. It's gonna start auto-correcting all the things inside.
Yeah.
Instead of having to sit there and stew in our dysfunction. I've given this advice to a lot of young adult men who looks like they're kind of defeated and are asking me for advice about life. I'm like, dude, let's cut through all this stuff. How about you deadlift?
I love that. Just go lift some heavy weight.
It doesn't matter if all you could get is a 25 on each side. As long as as you lift it, it just unleashes the beast and like it builds the confidence and it's amazing how this is undervalued.
Absolutely.
Among devout Christians.
Yeah.
Among devout Catholics. I had a young adult woman tell me the other day. She's like, she just got into her faith, and she's like, I'm looking around for a guy who's like, at minimum, I want to know, like, if my house is on fire, he could carry me out of it. Like,
right, yeah, absolutely.
I want to go to some of these dudes, like, have you heard of a gym? Like, you don't have to be huge, but curl every once in a while, But there's something about that sends, not just the psychological health, but sends a message to the world about how we carry ourselves.
Yeah.
How we discipline ourselves.
Yeah.
How we live our lives. I do a lot of public speaking, and I find that during the COVID time, I lost some of my motive, and I'm building the body back.
Sure.
To me, that's not vanity. That's part of the message. My body conveys as I'm in front of people talking.
Right.
That if I want to tell you how to live your life, I have to look like I'm actually living my life in a disciplined way. Priests, I want to see them do the same thing.
Yeah.
How do you not cross that line from like the appearance does actually matter,
right,
to here's vanity, and what is the distinction between those two, and how do you personally, especially in a career that's like it feeds that, like super feeds you making sure you look good.
It's something I wrestle with all the time. And again, virtue, we like things to be very clean cut and think, okay, if you're doing it here, you're good. But virtue is oftentimes, it's a organic balance between two extremes. And some days you win and some days you don't. I had this really interesting encounter. I got a call from a priest one day. He lost about 45 pounds working with me. He was looking great, feeling amazing. He didn't look like a bodybuilder by any means. He looked like a normal human being to me at that point.
Yeah.
Wasn't underfed or anything. He called me and said, "Hey, Dakota, I had a couple of parishioners who approached me and, asked me, 'Hey, Father, are you sick? Or, I've noticed you're really giving a lot into your health. Are you okay? Is everything, kind of that,
Yeah.
Are you being vain? Are you sick? What's going on with you? Like, you've had this huge change.'" And he's like, "Dakota, am I being too extreme with this? And I was telling him, Father, you have to understand there's two really important components to this. The first is that when you begin to progress in your life in good ways, it's going to highlight people's insecurities. It contrasts their insecurities a lot. So they have one of two options. They can either take that, that challenge to themselves and they can rise up to it and be like, that's inspiring, I want to do better, or they can cut you down to make themselves feel better in their, whatever you want to call it, let's call it mediocrity.
Yeah.
Well, the other component to this that I told him is, Father, the extremes that people live have become normal. So now if you deviate from what's normal, you're seen as immediately, oh, you're dieting, or oh, you care about your looks.
Yeah.
And I told him, the average has become the normal. It's not normal to overeat every single meal of every single day, to never take care of your body, to abuse your health. That's not normal.
Right.
But of course, if I were to say that to somebody, hey, should you really have that extra piece of pizza? No, I mean, it's insulting.
Oh yeah, totally.
So on the flip side, it's very easy to say,
Should you really be lifting and taking care of yourself?
Right.
If you ever go crabbing, you don't have to put a lid on the top of a big bucket of crabs, because as soon as one gets near the top, they'll pull it back down.
No, you're not getting out.
True story, man.
No, absolutely.
Like, you get down here with us and stink. No, it's true, man.
But it's tough. It really comes down to your intention. Obviously, that's with a lot of things.
Yeah. We got time for one more question, but real simply, someone's watching this, like, I want to make a change. What's the first step? Where do you start? One joke I started out with, that my book Living Joy is, people, there's a joke like, you can't get there from here. I want to go to such and such town. You can't get there from here. It's a joke because you can literally get anywhere from wherever you are. Some people will look at like the call to joy and think, I'm not a happy person, so therefore this doesn't apply to me. I'm not a fit person, never have been, therefore this doesn't apply to
Right.
me. The spiritual journey is all about whether you look like you right now, or me, or someone who's never touched a weight. It's about taking steps.
Absolutely.
That's the Lord loves us right where we are.
Yeah.
And that's how life is with Him. So where do you get started?
Yeah, one thing that I work with every kind of client you can imagine, from professional athletes to somebody who's never seen the inside of a gym. And for every person, it's, okay, we have to find something that's going to work for you. That's the biggest thing, is sustainability, which is what you're getting at. Yeah, it's looking at your life and being realistic about, what's something small that I can do. Maybe I can just focus on drinking more water this week and hydrating myself. Maybe I can't go to the gym yet. Maybe I can, go out for a walk more. And maybe it is, pushing yourself to the next level. But really, there's no, easy answer, because it's really dependent upon what the person can do. But yeah, I think starting small is really important. But being realistic, as I mentioned earlier, of not having this idea that I'm going to lose, 30 pounds in 1 month. Healthy, sustainable weight loss would be 1 to 2 pounds a week. So things like that, people just have unrealistic expectations of what they can achieve. But yeah, finding somebody who you can trust, who can just give you some basic advice. That's how humans learn a lot of time, is imitation. But yeah, returning to whole foods, just simple foods, not all the processed stuff. Something as simple as that, of getting rid of, pop, extra sugar, things like that.
Yeah. The small steps, man.
Yeah, just one simple, this is a kind of a interesting little example I give to people, but, fats, for example, are 1 gram of fat is 9 calories, whereas 1 gram of protein and 1 gram of carb is 4 calories. A handful of almonds can easily be as many calories as a Big Mac, and we just don't realize it. I call it the illusion of healthy eating.
Wow.
So just learning some basics of nutrition, of fitness, which empowers you. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but there's a lot of rules and regulations, because it's important. For things that are important, we have a lot of parameters. So, just finding basic things you can do. Somebody who's been there, done that. The same way in the spiritual life, I'm looking up to the saints. I'm not just going through this journey myself. People have done it. So
take those little steps, man.
Yeah.
Okay, very last question. I lied. Dakota, what's for dinner?
What's for dinner?
What's a professional bodybuilder eat for dinner tonight?
It's pretty boring.
Chicken and broccoli.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of chicken. I mean, honestly, I don't mind eating boring, but yeah, chicken, rice, sweet potatoes, oats. But when I do eat big, I eat big. So
Okay.
I'm disciplined. But last week at In-N-Out, I had 3 double-doubles in one meal. So
3 double-doubles.
my record is 5. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it's all about balance.
See, that's the reason I want to professionally exercise, is so I can eat anything I want.
It just gives you more room.
Yeah, man, you could get a lot more mercy. Anyway, dude, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having
Tell
me,
me the
man.
URL one more time.
Yeah, DakotaLaneFitness.com.
All right, brother.
Same
Thanks.
thing, Instagram, Facebook, all of it.
Cool. Thanks for your faith, bro.
Yeah.
I just appreciate that, your witness, everything. I love you guys. I hope what you walk away with from tonight is that this is an important part of your life. It's not like you have this soul and then the devil created your body and all things physical. No, God created the whole thing. And take care of that part of you because you're worth caring for. The Lord loves you, and you're worth the time it takes to invest a little bit in your own happiness with the self-care of taking care of your body. And it's all about just taking steps from wherever you are, not having some crazy ideal. You don't have to fit these ideals. You just have to follow the Lord, take care of yourself, love yourself, as He commanded us to. Love others as you love yourself. You presume you love yourself. And I love you guys, and we'll see you next week. We're going to continue this topic next week with another dear friend of mine. Really excited with Patrick Devaney on next week. We'll see you then.